we have all these partnerships, Ripple and Liquido and Zilo and Aviva investors, and they're partnering all together to showcase that it's actually possible to tokenize on the XRP Ledger using the multipurpose token, right? That's powerful. And the important part, it's the infrastructure that is going to be built on the XRP Ledger. And I think this is the key point. It's not on Ethereum or any other blockchain or maybe off-chain or so. It's going to be built with tokenization in mind on the XRP Ledger.
Once we have the DEX integration, you will see like all those different pools of liquidity interacting with each other, which, to be honest, I think is also why we haven't seen it yet with the DEX integration, because bringing those things to the decentralized exchange of the XRP Ledger, trading any value with anything else on the ledger, man, that's the vision, yeah.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the Krippenreiter TV show. Today, Vet and I are going to take a closer look at how Ripple's institutional partners are planning to tokenize on the XRPL, or to be more precise, about two of Ripple's new partnerships and investments in Zilo and Licuido to bootstrap the new multipurpose token standard on the XRP Ledger. Also, Ripple doubling down on scaling their Ripple payments rails in the EU, and what this means for XRP being right in the middle with auto-bridging. Lastly, even more behind the scenes about XRPL's newest server software release version 3.3.0, which I already went into great detail the other day for anyone who missed it. Hey Vet, how are you doing, and how do you actually feel about the Clarity Act getting postponed until September?
Doing great. Hey, thanks. Yeah, thanks for having
Nice.
me. Yeah, I believe it's sort of like expected at this point, because polling market was like showing very early on. It dropped in likelihood quite a lot for 2026, which I think is very important for people to understand. Just because it's unlikely for 2026 doesn't mean it's not going to come, right? It's just like for 2026. So I personally do think eventually we will get it. Just in the meantime, it's a little bit more volatile. So yeah, I saw also a lot of people were posting, well, maybe it's because of Brian Armstrong. You know, if he wouldn't have, prevented it earlier this year, we might have already gotten it. I know that Brad Garlinghouse and others were like, pushing very early, say, hey, let's get it done. So yeah, maybe Brian was too hard with the negotiations, and that's why we are now delayed.
Yeah, I think it will take a little bit of more time. I mean, September is not too far in the future, so if it eventually will come, I think September might be the next date to look forward to. If not in September, maybe next year after the midterms. But then I heard it's a lot less likely because there's less support, more Democrats probably voting against it. But we will see. I mean, it's not really I think because it's crypto, it's not really a political issue. At least it shouldn't be a political issue. In the end, I think we all want clarity. The question is just when and what needs to happen in terms of the ethics, right? Because what I saw all the time was just the issue with Trump, and I don't know what can be done here to make this more appealing to Democrats as well.
Yeah, to be honest, we have to say, hey, the more clear rules there is, the better it is for everybody, So whether you think someone is not doing great things with crypto, like malicious activities, or positive and good activities, at the end, clear rules will make it like very easy to define and to punish like bad or bad behavior. But without rules, without like good clarity, you always have to fall back to what you have currently. So it's always like that. But I'm very positive. I'm very positive to look into the future with regulation in general. I think it's just a matter of time. Of course, we all would have loved it to have it sooner than later, but that's politics. So it's everybody needs to play by that rule. So
it definitely is. For sure. But there's not only political news. I think if we look too much into the political side, it gets bearish. I want this to be bullish. So we should also take a look at what Ripple is doing right now with their tokenization efforts. And this is a huge construct, I think, that is going to be built right now because they're partnering with a lot of big institutions, and two new investments that they did and two new partnerships are with Zilo and Licuido. And in their press release, what they said is they are deepening its push into capital markets. Ripple, the leading provider of blockchain-based enterprise solutions across traditional and digital finance, announced strategic investments in Zilo, which specializes in global transfer agency asset technology solutions for asset managers and wealth, and also Licuido, as we already said, a tokenization solution and trading platform for digital ownership and asset liquidity. And the important part, it's the infrastructure that is going to be built on the XRP Ledger. And I think this is the key point. It's not on Ethereum or any other blockchain or maybe off-chain or so. It's going to be built with tokenization in mind on the XRP Ledger. And this is pretty cool. But it's not going to be actually be using the IOU-based trustline token standard, right? It's using the new multi-purpose token. And there's a lot upcoming on the multi-purpose token side. And to make the multi-purpose token just usable or maybe a lot more interesting for the institutions as well, we need these kinds of partnerships because they have the infrastructure and they have the tools to make this multi-purpose token actually usable. And for Zilo, this means, when we look at what the platform actually enables clients to do, it enables mint and tokenize of traditional fund units, so a digital twin on the blockchain, on distributed ledger infrastructure. So the XRP Ledger, for example. So we can issue, for example, digitally native securities and atomically settle on chain. And atomically settle on chain is also, you could interpret it as what Batch will bring, right? We already talked with DVP that you can do atomic settlement. On one side, you have securities equity. On the other side, you have a cash leg, so it could be Ripple USD. And then you settle atomically, so it either happens or doesn't happen. And we have also on-chain compliance. This is something the XRP Ledger is really strong. We have clawback, for example, and freeze, global freeze. And something Jesse was also talking about, collateral mobility. This is also something that Zilo enables. And then the management of both the traditional and digital asset side, so as we said, the digital twin, through a unified operational framework. So in summary, it leverages Zilo's existing enterprise-grade transfer agency capabilities for settlement. This is, as always, the main part, right? Settlement. Then reconciliation, payments, corporate actions, and regulatory reporting across both asset types. So not just technical stuff, also all the compliance stuff, regulatory reporting, let's say for tax purposes, or anything that is non-technical. And this is important because if you only focus on the tech, I think you are missing the bigger picture. And the bigger picture is also everything that is boring and that is maybe behind the scenes. And the other part is Licuido. And Licuido makes it more obvious because on their website, everything is about the XRP Ledger. It's really interesting. And they talk about money market fund tokenization. And if we scroll down, it says here XRP Ledger's proven 10 plus year track record of consistent uptime and zero exploits. And if we go down further, we see this little demo. And I think this is pretty interesting because it highlights what this actually looks like on their platform. So if you decide to tokenize something on the Licuido platform, and tokenization in this sense means multi-purpose token on the XRP Ledger, then we can see the flow of funds. Like how will this go from minting and tokenization and configuring, setting it up, to actually being broadcasted on the XRP Ledger. It's a little bit tricky because the demo is on the side, a little bit weird with this pointy, flashy thing, but I try my best. So it starts basically with the token details. So you would, let's say, give this thing a token name, and you would say, let's say it's a fund token type, and then on the blockchain, it's XRP Ledger. What is the base currency? So you are basically configuring the basics, the details on what this token should represent. Also logo. Then the next part is a description and where the jurisdiction will be. In the sense, it will be, on this case, it will be the United States, and the offering price and when it will start and when it will end. So this could also probably be used for bonds if they have a maturity date. Then the next slide that they are showing here are the conditions. So you can say, for example, there is a maximum investable limit and a minimum investable limit, then the transfer fees, and how much of the supply there should be. So you can also set the maximum token supply. In this case, it's, I don't know, 5 billion or something. pretty high number. It's a demo after all. So, but now it gets interesting. They click on create token, and what create token does on the XRP Ledger, and if we click on the view transaction, it shows the multipurpose token issuance create. And I think this is important because there were not really many multipurpose token issuances on the XRPL before, right? But now I think maybe this could be the start of it all. This could be how maybe the institutions will actually now leverage the XRPL to go on chain to use the multipurpose token standard. And we can see as well to close maybe the cycle, because this is interesting on the Liquido side as well. If we scroll down, there's this one guy on the advisory board, which is Dan James. And if we look here, it says he was previously the CIO of Global Fixed Income at Aviva Investors. And that I think this closes the cycle, right? We see that we have all these partnerships, Ripple and Liquido and Zilo and Aviva Investors, and they are partnering all together to showcase that it's actually possible to tokenize on the XRP Ledger using the multipurpose token, right? That's powerful.
That's the whole power of working together with multiple partners to achieve that. Yeah, I fully agree.
Yeah, it's really powerful, and it's also fascinating that this is actually something that is going to be on chain rather sooner than later, because you could always say, yeah, something is missing, but it seems it's not much missing actually. Let's say you want to tokenize a money market fund. I always thought, yeah, maybe it doesn't work because you still need the DEX integration, but it looks like the DEX integration, for example, isn't really needed for money market fund. So you can already do most of what is needed. Obviously, the multipurpose token standard will be expanded. There will be features that are going to be added to the multipurpose token to make it more usable for many different use cases. But for now, like bonds, for example, and money market funds, you can already do. And this is what is being shown here.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing with the MPT DEX integration, why for me personally would be very important, is because this is where XRP can be used as a bridge currency once it's basically used as a auto bridging mechanism. So without that, you basically have peer-to-peer trading, OTC, that you can do with people, which is, very great. But I think also narrow in, like, for those use cases specifically that these people have, which is very powerful. But once we have the DEX integration, you will see like all those different pools of liquidity interacting with each other, which, to be honest, I think is also why we haven't seen it yet, with the DEX integration, because, bringing those things to the decentralized exchange of the XRP Ledger, trading any value with anything else on the ledger, man, that's the vision, yeah.
That's the vision. Do you think that this will only be used on a permissioned DEX, or do you think we will also be able to use the open DEX to trade these, let's say, money market funds and bonds?
I think that depends heavily on regulation. This is where it goes back to the Clarity Act and other places where the issuer resides and what they can do and what they cannot do. So depending on the issuer of those assets, they might allow you to do different things. They might only be comfortable with trading with credentialed parties. Credentialed parties these days is a lot more gated. The liquidity is a lot more thinner, right? Because it's less available right now. So I think there is a good push in opening it up to as many people as possible, right? So that people can hold those assets. Specifically, like, hey, money market fund, tokenized stocks. That's very much what people really want to have.
Yeah.
But I see both. So to answer, I see both. I see quality activity in permissioned environments, but also very good activity in outside of permission environments if regulation allows it.
Yeah. It's really unfortunate that in the end it always comes down to regulation and not really technical parts, because if it's tech, you can also say, yeah, we just need a new feature, a new amendment, a new version of XRP Ledger D. But the regulation part, you cannot control. You cannot say, yeah, let's work on the regulation. Yeah, and the politicians have to work on the regulation. So.
Right, because we always need issuers, and issuers sitting in any given country, right? And they need to follow the laws of the country they're sitting in. So if you are issuing out from the United States, you need to follow rules there. Plus, because this technology is so global, it's a global distribution mechanism, how do you account for, let's say you are an issuer in Europe and your holder is someone in the United States? right? How does is that an issue? Is that a non-issue? I like the approach with stablecoins. When you look at the stablecoins, they are very highly regulated assets in the sense of wherever you burn and mint, the redemption part is highly regulated. If you want to mint or redeem RLUSD, you need to be a Ripple customer. But in the meantime, within that, anybody can hold RLUSD. Someone with no identity can hold RLUSD. Someone with full credential can also hold RLUSD. The only part where they say, hey, now we need regulation, right, is at the minting and redemption. And I would hope to see that more also in those assets. Let's say with money market funds, tokenized equities and stocks, minting and redemption, full regulation. But in the meantime, when it goes through the chain and activity, anybody can hold it. That would be like my dream.
Yeah, true. That would be the best case, right? Because
that would be the best case.
This would open up the XRP Ledger to as many people as possible. And I'm pretty sure many people want to hold money market funds because it's one of the most boring investment vehicles that you can have to earn yield.
Right.
And but
with treasuries and
definitely. But there's more on the regulation side, and especially for Ripple when it comes to being licensed. And this is, I think they are they actually unique with this, that they are the only ones being licensed in whole of the EEA, or is this are they late to the party? I think they are one of the first, if not only the first, right?
They must be one of the first because the people at the Europe office, they're really pushing hard on all those licenses very, very aggressively. So shout out to Cassie Cadrog and those people who are leading, I guess, the managing partners for the Europe side. And they are really, bringing like all these things together. And you can see immediately the effects. Last time they had the last license that they acquired as well for trading, issuance, and so on, was triggering the Schumann financial activity. It followed right after, actually. The permission DEX activity followed right after. They had it like some mid-July, mid-end July they had. And then, a couple of weeks later, there was the announcement. So I think it is not a coincidence that you acquire licenses, of course, regulation, and then you see activity.
Yeah. I was personally actually looking forward to Ripple issuing the Ripple Euro, but I think it turns out that Ripple actually wants to use partner, not use, but partner with OpenFX and Schumann Financial to use the XRP Ledger, as they say, the XRP Ledger permission DEX and OpenFX's network to do institutional on-chain FX, which is something we all want to see, because on the permission DEX, auto-bridging is also active. It's also a mechanism that is deeply embedded in the XRPL, and auto-bridging uses XRP if it makes sense. So if the conversion can be better with XRP, XRP will be used. So this is actually what we want to see, but just more of it. But it's a good start. Ripple got the license, fully licensed, and now it's snowballing, as you always say, right? It's a good start. Yes. Now we have to snowball. We have to build this FX market on the XRPL with the permission DEX and make it liquid, because this will attract liquidity and more demand for people to actually use the FX market and settle on chain. And on top of this, maybe to broaden the scope a lot more, because it's not just about FX and licensing and regulation. It's also about tech. It's always about tech, and in the end, it's always about tech, at least a little bit. And the new version that came out is the version 3.3.0, and I already made a video about it. So for anyone who is completely new to this and who wants to like an overview about everything, it should be pop up here somewhere where I go through everything. But maybe again, just to summarize what is going on. The new XRP Ledger version is something that will introduce not only new features, it will also make the XRP Ledger better, right? Maybe give us an overview of that. What is the feature that you are most looking forward to?
I think the feature that I personally look most forward to is definitely confidential transfer.
Okay.
So the privacy part. That's very personal. I know that from other part, batch is very big and you can do all this, but confidential transfer for me is so important because it's the first time we are introducing privacy to the XRP Ledger. It's the first step in a long roadmap that we have. We know this also from IO and other privacy experts like Anshal, is about, hey, what is the end goal? What can we do with privacy on chain? It's something that institutions demand, a lot of people demand for various use cases. Not all use cases need privacy, but for me, confidential transfer is so important because it's the first introduction of privacy onto the XRP ledger, something we've seen on other chains being a major focus, on Ethereum, Solana, Zcash, we know that, Monero. So we get some of those properties for multi-purpose tokens, which we earlier talked about, onto the XRP ledger. So I'm personally very excited for confidential transfers. That's for me, number one. And then I guess goes the list. Batch is one of the darlings of builders and other people to have trustless swaps, delivery risk payment, up to 8 transactions you can put together. I think what I would also rank up very high is the permission delegation.
Okay.
Why is permission delegation so important? When we talk back to institutions and issuance, tokenization, what it allows you essentially is to have a cold issuer address, cold wallet, and you can still delegate specific transaction types to other parties in your circle at the company, partners, to do transactions without revealing or using your cold address key, right? So it is something that institutions definitely want. I can tell that it's very needed from a treasury point of view. So confidential transfers and permission delegation, very, very high up there too. Dynamic MPT is interesting because the thing is, it goes back to confidential transfers.
Yeah.
You need to change the MPT to allow these things. But you can see it's a very nicely packed release with very anticipated amendments. I today made a post that I am voting for Batch as well now.
Nice.
Because it was supposedly to come. So we are seeing more amendments being pushed now after we had a few releases of, strengthening the security. And so 3.3, very, very, very big release. I can tell you this is like... We see first timers on this, like as I said, privacy, that are very amazing. And I cannot wait to see what developers, institutions alike are going to do with it.
Yeah, I wonder for the institutions if confidential transfer is already enough. I think it's enough, but I wouldn't be shocked to hear from them that confidential accounts is also something they want and need. Right. And this is something Ayo talked about is coming next year. So I'm looking forward to this as well. I just hope this confidential transfer is already enough for them to get going, get started.
Right.
And actually use the multi-purpose token on chain.
Yeah, very important. Like each time we have these amendments, specifically these closed-end amendments, it's like they need to already be useful by themselves, right? So that you can use and do something with them. So confidential transfers in itself with the amounts allows you some use cases, but I think for the full use case venue, you probably need more. That's why you look to do more. I like also the story about it. Like originally thought about, hey, maybe we can do XRP. No, it's a bit more trickier. Let's focus on what actually matters, and that's tokenization. So privacy for tokenization is the right way. I would agree with that. And but yeah, we have also some non-splashy amendments that or features that Mayuka was talking about. Shout out to Mayuka, very, very well written down. I like that she looked at it from a point of view of, hey, feature amendments, everybody talks about them. Let's talk about the non-feature amendments of this release, which is a long list, very technical. I will want to give a heads up, but overall, it goes all the hard work of the core developers in it to make the XRP Ledger software more robust, more safer, plus also more lightweight. There's memory reduction as well in it, which is very, very impressive. Other people like Francis, who is doing the rich list. Shout out to Francis. He was saying, hey, I'm noticing a couple gigabyte less memory usage. That's amazing. So that's cool. Everybody who's looking at the XRP Ledger, you can be assured, no matter what the price is doing, a lot of people are working always very, very hard to make it the best software for really everybody.
Yeah, there's a lot.
What was your highlight?
Yeah, my highlight is probably Batch, I think, because it's one of the first times that we have an amendment that is very obviously useful, not only for retail, but also for institutions, or the other way around, not only for the institutions, but also for retail, which makes it super interesting because this should convince the many DUNL validators to vote for it, especially it was
I voted
already
for it.
nearly there, right? You already voted for it. I think it will be in activation phase pretty soonish. I think many people will vote on it pretty fast because it should have been enabled already. Now it's even better, more secure. Now it's more likely than ever for it to get enacted on XRPL. And about the non-technical stuff, I think what's important is all the AI red team efforts that are going on, 60 fixes for bugs. And these are, if I get it right, these are the fixes that are not wrapped in the fix cleanup. So this is on top. So you have 6 fixes for bugs uncovered by the AI red team effort. And then on top of this, you have the fix cleanup, which also bundles fix. But these fixes are bundled as an amendment because they changed the transaction processing on the XRPL, which is why it needs to be an amendment.
Yeah. They're protocol changes, essentially.
Exactly.
Every amendment is always a protocol change. So.
Exactly. And then improved node synchronization. We will see how likely this will be, or I hope it will be tremendous, because this is something many people are always talking about. It's not good. My node is not good. It's not syncing good enough, or I'm losing connection. This should help.
Yeah, I have to say it was very well received overall, and I was very happy to see a lot of people are anticipating a lot of these amendments, because we have been sort of accumulating them over time. Batch specifically, batch and permission delegation making making a comeback. They were both pulled, so now they are making a comeback. I see both of them also rather sooner being activated as old timer amendments. And I'm looking definitely, as I said, my personal highlight, privacy. That's something I'm very passionate about. Yeah, to see on the XRP Ledger. It's just crazy to think about. It's a public blockchain.
Yeah,
and then you see someone's balance and you cannot see it.
It's a pivot, because if we think about privacy, the first thing that comes up all the time was, back in the day, it was Monero. And if you didn't do what Monero did, you were public. So it was either transparent and public or Monero. But we can't be Monero, because if we do what Monero is doing, we are too much, basically. Too much for the regulation. So we have to find the middle ground, the middle way, which adds selective disclosure, which makes this even possible.
Exactly. So this is the interesting thing about privacy. Depending on how you introduce it or frame it, it's seen as institutional, great, useful, or criminal, right? Like if you Monero is always has this I would say image to it, right? Oh, privacy. Why do you want privacy, right? It's always questioned. But I think this is the good thing about, hey, having useful privacy is not something, just because you don't want to have something public, it doesn't mean you do something nefarious. That's very, very important. Privacy is a human right. Privacy is an institutional right. They need it. They want it. Everybody should have access to privacy. And doing this on a public blockchain is something for me that's interesting. You don't need a private blockchain. No walled garden needed. You bring this to the public blockchain. I mean, that's I can only heads off to the engineers to make this, because I'm pretty sure there's a lot of difficult things. If you go even further, all the homomorphic encryption and cryptography there, where you run basically computation on top of these encrypted things without revealing them.
Yeah.
I mean, this is mathematical high class.
Genius level, right?
Yeah, it's chef's kiss. So
there are many people who always ask me, the XRP Ledger is more than 10 years old. Why wasn't this already considered at some point? Why is this being introduced right now? And I remember Anshel saying there simply wasn't any way to do it, because the only way to do it is with zero knowledge proofs, and zero knowledge proofs is a new technology. It's new.
Right.
That's why it took so long.
Yeah, and plus, machines are now way more capable, right? We have way stronger hardware that we can do all of these proof generations, and that are necessary. So, and plus, now we are seeing more and more, just like in the beginning of the show, right? There is a huge push from institutions to come actually on chain. Previously, it was okay, I'm observing, not sure, so on the sideline. Now we are seeing, hey, they want to be on chain, so we can actually push these things also as well. So I would say, probably 3 things. Technology got better. technology got better, software got better, plus institutions want to come on chain. So the XRP Ledger is bringing this. And to be honest, as such a OG old blockchain, bringing this is novel, right?
Yeah.
There's no, like Bitcoin doesn't have it, for example, right? So
yeah. And it also shows that even chains like XRP Ledger can still change. You don't have to get rid of all the novel and genius level fundamentals that got introduced 10 years ago and still be innovative. You can still innovate and create new use cases and change on a technological level and be part of this new change in regards to tokenization and more use cases and institutions coming on chain, and not be the old blockchain that no one uses anymore because you cannot adapt. You can adapt, and the XRP Ledger is doing exactly this. And the confidential transfer really shows that it's still possible to introduce new technology that is novel, and the XRP Ledger is ready for it. Which
absolutely,
is cool.
Absolutely. That's where we, I think, as a community, have a tremendous amount of strength, is that we are adaptive. We bring interesting things. We work together with the industry, with institutions to make it the best solution for them. We are not like, going to replace, everybody or something like this. No, we work together with finance to make that a great solution for usage.
Yeah, I think this is also why the XRPL is always in this news. It's all part of it because it's very easy to adapt and to integrate XRP Ledger. And this is one of the biggest strengths, I think, of the XRPL, is that because everything is native and API based, it's very easy to get an overview of what do you need, and is the XRP Ledger capable of serving this need? And in most cases, you find out for the very core use cases that resembles the most amount of money, the XRPL is perfectly viable to do it. Let's say tokenization, money market funds. Sure, you cannot do the most novel new AMM, maybe because you don't have smart contracts, or you can't do something super crazy new on the lending side because this would be too specific. But the specific, like the last few percentages of what is needed is maybe not even needed because you can do it off-chain. And the big pile of what the institutions actually need is what we are proposing and introducing to the XRPL. And it shows. Because we talked about this with the DTCC. What is the DTCC still missing? Or probably missing, we don't know actually. But what do we think is the DTCC still looking forward to on the XRPL? And we talked about privacy. We talked about DVP. And this is now all coming. Like the multipurpose token stack is getting stronger because of the expansions. Lending is coming to the chain. Batch enables DVP. Confidential transfers introduces privacy. All big needs that the DTCC needed and wants to see, I guess. And this is what the XRPL will deliver. I'm just questioning a little bit the scaling part, maybe. This is something we have to work more on, I think. Make the XRP a lot more scalable. Because we cannot only introduce new features all the time if the XRPL stays in its form the way it is right now. I hope it will not get overwhelmed with all these new features. So there should be a lot of more core development happening to make the core a lot better as well to scale.
Yeah, for scalability. Yeah, I like what Chandler said from T54 on scalability. He said you always do adoption, scaling. So let's push with adoption, like the XRP Ledger, and then we scale. And I'm aligning with that actually personally. I think first let's use what capacity we have here. And then we can start scaling it higher and see introducing like what we have right now. We have good usage. It fluctuates, of course, but I want the XRP Ledger to have full usage, and then we can scale higher from the point of view. But there's a lot of things that we can tackle if we need it. Parallel transaction execution is what a lot of people would eye on, and other places, but you always need to justify it with actual usage, not maybe usage.
Yeah, there are also drawbacks. Like we talk about parallel transaction execution. It sounds cool. It sounds like this is the solution for everything to scale. But then you have to remember, the moment you scale a lot more, someone has to store the data. Someone just has to pay for this new amount of transactions and storage data. And this is also where we have to maybe look back to the full history nodes and find a way how to pay them maybe to make the full history a lot more viable to host.
Yeah. Personally, I think, so that was a really good recent discussion also with Wietse. I think full history should be, at least for those who provide full history, should be truncated, right? To provide maybe only 5 years or so of full history. Because at the end, if you want full history, you can store it. There's nobody preventing you from storing full history. But public full history provided as a, service, sort of for free, okay?
Yeah.
I think we should definitely go away with this, because
100%.
that's going to be forever a growing problem, right? Storage will always have one direction, and that's up. We can manage maybe how fast, right? Maybe we can, with technology improvement, make it less fast go up. But eventually, we need to, for those people who run full history operators, say, hey, it's okay that you only do 5 years. Stellar, by the way, does only 1 year. Stellar Foundation, 1 year full history for free. Anybody can store more. So that's one thing. If you look at Solana's over 200 terabytes of full history. So as scaling, as you say, as with scaling, it becomes bigger. It's absolutely true. So we need to be mindful of that. Yeah, very, very good point.
Yeah, thank you, Vet.
Appreciate it.
I think it's, again, super cool that we talked about especially tokenization this time. And the XRP Ledger is ready for it. We have the multi-purpose token standard that is being used for this. And we saw all these partnerships working on exactly this. We saw EuroP working with Ripple USD and Ripple on using the permission decks as well for payments as well. So many use cases running on XRPL right now. I just hope we scale a lot more. But until then, Vet, I hope you have a great day. And for everyone listening, I hope you have a great day as well. And until next time, ciao, ciao.